I, 23F, have been with my boyfriend, 26M, for almost 3 years, and we live together. Recently, his parents were arrested. I'd rather not go into the details, and as a result, his little brother, 11M, has had to move in with us. I understand the situation is complicated, and my boyfriend didn't really have a choice. Obviously, he couldn't just leave his brother with nowhere to go. The thing is, I find his little brother creepy, and I feel horrible even saying that. I know he's a kid and he's gone through a traumatic experience, but some of the things he does make me really uncomfortable. For instance, he stares at me a lot, like almost all the time when we're in the same room. I'll catch him just watching me, and it's unsettling. He also has this habit of walking into our bedroom without knocking, especially when my boyfriend is out. I've told him multiple times that he needs to knock, but he either ignores it or just doesn't care. He will shower and use the bathroom with the door wide open, clearly so everyone can see him when walking past, even though I have told him he needs to keep the door closed when he's in there. One time, I had just gotten out of the shower and was in my towel when I walked into the bedroom, and he was just standing there, staring at me. I asked him what he was doing, and he didn't even answer, just kept staring before finally walking away. I brought this up to my boyfriend, but he brushed it off, saying his brother is probably just adjusting to everything and doesn't mean any harm. I lent him my laptop because he said he needed it for homework, and when I got it back, it was completely filled with adult content, like he had downloaded it and it was in the search history. I told my boyfriend he needed to speak with him, but my boyfriend says it's normal for a boy his age. He just told me to clear the search history and delete what he downloaded. But he is not being normal. He is weirding me out, and I feel bad even saying it. I get that this kid is dealing with a lot. Losing his parents like that is traumatic, but at the same time, I feel like my feelings are being dismissed. My boyfriend says I'm overreacting, but I honestly feel really uncomfortable in my own home now. I even find myself avoiding being alone with his brother because it just feels weird. I don't know if I am overreacting, like I understand giving some leeway because of everything that's happened in his life, but he is really weirding me out. Any advice on how to handle this would be really appreciated. Top comments. Commenter. Get a lock for the door, get that kid in therapy, and start discussing things like boundaries and healthy relationships, what they are, what they mean. Close the door on him in the bathroom, and eventually it will click. He's probably not talking because he just went through some hellish trauma. Allow yourself, your boyfriend, and the brother some grace for this adjustment period. You could also consider living separately for a while if it's in your best interest. Just take care of yourself, and you got this. Commenter. This kid sounds like he really needs therapy. This is way beyond what you should be getting advice online for. I know he's just a kid now, but what about a few years from now? This behavior is not normal. None of what you describe is even close to normal for a boy his age. Therapy, and it might take a while to find a good therapist, is really your only option. Commenter. This kid has serious issues and needs to be in therapy, like now. It's super concerning that your BF isn't taking it seriously and is dismissing your feelings. He's undoubtedly feeling really overwhelmed right now, but that's no reason to put so much of this on you. You need to put your foot down and tell your BF that if he won't take it seriously and get his brother help, that you don't feel safe and comfortable in the home and you're leaving. Make it clear you're not saying it's me or your brother. It's everyone's mental health. Commenter. I'm not sure anyone has mentioned this yet, but some of his behaviors indicate SA trauma or child abuse. Being hypersexual, doing age-inappropriate things, not understanding physical boundaries, and seeking corn at 11 years of age are all indicators that this child has witnessed, experienced, or been exposed to things that were inappropriate. Your boyfriend may be jaded because he came from the same household, but he better wake up, get his head screwed on straight, and take this seriously. Allowing an 11-year-old to knowingly have access to corn is considered abuse and child endangerment in some places. I understand your feelings. They're valid. Something is off with this child. However, before you jump straight to fearing him, try to put his behavior into perspective and look at things from a different point of view. Your boyfriend took guardianship of him. He needs to start acting like a guardian and start talking to his brother like an adult talks to a child. This child needs boundaries, and he needs to know that his behavior is unacceptable. Your boyfriend needs to tell him that when he uses the restroom or showers, the door remains closed. He needs to know it's unacceptable behavior to search for corn. If he can't be trusted with the computer, he will not be allowed to use the computer or will only be permitted to do so under one of your supervision. This child needs therapy ASAP. You and your boyfriend need guidance and assistance. If DCS or a similar agency is involved, reach out and ask for help for this child and ask what you can do to get him help. Update. Update 1. My F23 boyfriend, M26, S little brother creeps me out, but my boyfriend isn't taking it seriously. I don't know what to do. Hi guys, I wanted to give you all an update on my post from about 6 weeks ago. It's the only other post on my profile if you haven't seen it. But for a really brief TLDR, my boyfriend's parents were arrested. His 11-year-old brother, Avery, came to live with us. He was doing a lot of behaviors that made me feel uncomfortable and unsettled. First and foremost, thank you all for sending me the love, advice, and well wishes. A lot of you guys pointed out that my boyfriend, Caleb, seemed to be overwhelmed and was just sticking his head in the sand, and honestly, yeah. I sat him down a little while after I posted here, and we spoke about his brother and everything going on, and he just started crying to me. He has cried in front of me maybe twice before, so I knew he was really feeling it. He said he was really sorry for the way he'd been acting, and that he was just feeling so stressed that he was just pushing everything down in a way. He agreed that Avery's behaviors were unacceptable, and that I told him he needed to have a firm conversation with Avery about boundaries, or I just wouldn't be able to live with them much longer. Caleb said he would enforce a change of rules, and then he started sobbing, went gray, and started hyperventilating. I was seriously concerned and confused about what was happening. He said he needed to tell me something. I was comforting him and trying to calm him down, and he told me he was a victim of pretty extreme CSA from his dad, and he thought Avery probably was as well, which we later found out was true. That explained a lot. Why Avery had no awareness of boundaries, why he was displaying these weirdly sexual behaviors, why we had such low contact with his parents before all this. But I met his parents, met them multiple times. Yeah, we had LC with them, but I met them. I had been to their house. They just seemed like normal people, nice people. They weren't creepy or scary or weird. I was really shocked at everything Caleb told me. Caleb had been hiding it for so many years, and he felt so ashamed that he hadn't reported it sooner. He said he was really hoping that the abuse hadn't also happened to Avery, and so I think he was trying so hard to ignore any signs that he had. He said he felt responsible because he never reported his dad, which meant the abuse could continue. But I told him none of this was his fault. He has no blame in him being abused or Avery being abused. We sought advice on what to do. We reported what Caleb had said to the police and to social services. Both Avery and Caleb were interviewed, but we haven't heard much back from the police about anything that might happen next. They said it could be a long process if they managed to bring any charges at all. Social services started giving us some more support. Avery has been behaving a lot better since. He's been listening to boundaries more. He's actually changed a lot in the short time since I posted here last. He's come out a bit more as a pretty charming and charismatic boy. Even though if I'm totally honest, he's still a little weird. But maybe that's to be expected after having the life he had. I got him into Scouts and he's made a pack of really close friends, who have even come over a few times. He's been getting on well with school, although they said he's only on KS1 level work, but I'm sure he'll catch up in time. And even if not, it's not the end of the world. TLDR, things have gotten a lot better since my boyfriend opened up about the abuse he had been the victim of. Update 2. It's been 3 months since my last post, and let me tell you, things have taken a turn I wasn't quite prepared for. First off, I know many of you will ask if Avery is still with us. The answer is yes, but not without complications. The honeymoon phase of Avery behaving better wore off fast. Maybe I was naive, thinking that a few months of stability and new friends would magically undo years of trauma. But the reality hit hard, and honestly, I'm at my breaking point. Avery started acting out again in weird, unpredictable ways. One of the friends he made in Scouts came over, and they both disappeared for a while. When I went to check on them, they were in the bathroom filling it with toilet paper for fun. Both of them looking at me like I'd interrupted some secret ritual. I tried to laugh it off, but it was so strange. The boy's mom called me later to say her son came home and wouldn't stop talking about how Avery's house has no rules, and asking why we let kids play with knives. Excuse me, what? I told her I didn't even know they'd found a knife. Next day, she tells me she doesn't think it's a good idea for their kids to play anymore. That's not all. 2 nights ago, Caleb and I woke up around 3 a.m. to this loud banging. We thought someone was breaking in, but no, it was Avery in the living room trying to nail together some pieces of wood he dragged in from who knows where. I asked him what he was doing, and he just blinked at me and said, "Building a safe." I was too tired to argue, so I just told him it had to stop until morning. He looked at me dead in the eye and said, "You'll thank me when it's finished." Like, okay, kid, what are you planning to keep in this safe? I didn't ask, I was too freaked out by his calmness. We tried talking to him about boundaries again, but Caleb's having a hard time keeping up with the energy needed to parent someone with such unique challenges. Caleb's past trauma is definitely not making this easier, and sometimes he retreats into himself. I don't blame him, but it does make me feel like I'm navigating this circus mostly alone. The therapist recommended keeping a set schedule for Avery, but he resists it every step of the way, and Caleb's inconsistent with enforcing it. This morning, I came into the kitchen to find that Avery had taped all the cupboard doors shut. When I asked him why, he said, to keep the bad energy inside. And when I told him that's not something we're doing in this house, he grinned, nodded, and then just left for school like nothing happened. So here we are. It feels like this house has become a bizarre blend of daycare and horror show, and I'm honestly questioning if I can handle this much longer. Caleb keeps saying we're in this together, but sometimes he looks at me with this exhausted, almost defeated look, like even he's not sure we can handle it. And the police? Yeah, nothing from them. Radio silence. TLDR, Avery's behavior is escalating again, and while Caleb and I are trying, I'm not sure how much longer I can take it. Feels like we're just holding our breath, waiting for the next weird thing to happen. Update 3. The past 2 weeks have been absolute chaos, and I'm honestly not sure how much more I can handle. After Avery's late night, safe building fiasco, things went too quiet. For a few days, he was eerily well behaved, almost like he'd turned into a different kid. He'd say good morning every day, kept his door closed, I almost cried in relief, and even offered to help with the dishes. I thought we'd turned a corner, that maybe all the weirdness was behind us. But then Caleb started finding strange little piles of stuff hidden all over the house. Like, in the bathroom cabinet, there was this stash of random things. Batteries, a mini flashlight, some pencils, and brace yourself, a handful of dead bugs wrapped in a tissue. And in the hall closet, an old shirt of mine, rolled up with a bunch of rocks. No one had any idea how they got there. We tried asking Avery about it, and he just shrugged and said, "That's for later." For later? When Caleb pressed him, Avery stared at him with this completely blank expression and said, "It's to keep us safe." Caleb told him he didn't need to keep us safe, and tried to explain that we're in charge of making sure he's safe. But Avery only smiled and said, "We'll see." I didn't think much of it until a few nights ago. I was up late working on my laptop, and Avery wandered into the living room around midnight. He just stood there, not saying a word. I asked him if he was okay, and he finally said, "You need to leave. You're in danger." I was half asleep, so I laughed it off, but he didn't. He kept staring and repeated, "You need to go. They're coming." I tried to ask who they were, but he just turned around and walked back to his room like he hadn't just creeped me out beyond belief. After that, I couldn't ignore the feeling in my gut. I knew I needed to talk to Caleb about moving out, at least temporarily. But Caleb's been so on edge, especially with all these bizarre things Avery's doing. He looked devastated when I suggested it and told me he couldn't handle all this alone, that he needed me there. He said he was worried about what might happen if he were the only one watching Avery. I mean, I get it, he's freaked out too, even if he won't admit it. And then came the breaking point. Yesterday morning, I got up early to get ready for work, and as I walked into the kitchen, I froze. On the table, there was this elaborate, almost ritualistic arrangement of things Avery had been collecting: the rocks, batteries, pencils, and even the dead bugs set up in this weird circular pattern. Right in the center was my phone, which I definitely hadn't left on the table. I looked around, expecting Avery to pop out, but it was dead silent. When he finally came into the room, I asked him what he was doing. He looked at me, shrugged, and said, "You need it. For protection." I didn't know if he was just messing with me or genuinely thought he was helping, but I couldn't shake how unsettling it all was. I've honestly never felt like I was losing my grip on reality more than in that moment. Caleb thinks Avery's working through things, and that this is his process, but I feel like I'm living in a horror movie. We agreed that Avery needs professional help, like serious, intensive therapy, but Caleb hasn't done anything concrete to make that happen yet. He keeps saying he'll look into it when he has time, but the weeks are passing, and I'm starting to feel like I'm the only one here who's genuinely disturbed by all of this. So here I am, still trying to figure out my next move. Do I stay and keep hoping that Avery will stabilize? Or do I get out now before something worse happens? Caleb says he understands if I need to go, but he keeps looking at me like he's begging me not to abandon him. I love him, but I don't know if I'm equipped to deal with this anymore. TLDR, Avery's bizarre behavior has escalated to the point where I'm seriously scared. And while Caleb seems to recognize there's a problem, he's dragging his feet on getting Avery help. I don't know how much longer I can handle this. Part of me feels like I'm on the verge of a breakdown. Update 4. So, this is it. I don't even know how to begin, but here goes. Things have spiraled beyond anything I could have ever predicted, and I honestly feel like I'm stepping out of a nightmare and back into reality. Buckle up because it's wild. After that last update, I hit a breaking point. I spent every night lying awake, wondering what was going to happen next. Avery's behavior only got stranger. He'd leave weird messages around the house, like little notes on sticky pads saying things like, "Watch the doors," or "Be ready." And every time Caleb and I tried to talk to him, Avery would just stare at us with that blank, unsettling look, refusing to explain. The straw that broke everything happened 3 nights ago. It was just after midnight, and I woke up to this scratching noise. At first, I thought it was the wind, but then I realized it was coming from inside the house. I shook Caleb awake, and we both listened, holding our breath. The noise was getting louder, like someone was dragging something heavy across the floor. We crept out of the bedroom, and there was Avery, crouched on the living room floor, with his protection circle set up again, this time with random kitchen knives arranged in a perfect, symmetrical pattern. Caleb tried to approach him gently, but Avery shot up, glaring at us with this intense, almost feral look in his eyes. He said, "It's too late now. They're here." Caleb tried to calm him down, saying, "Avery, you're safe. There's no one here." But Avery kept shaking his head, repeating, "You didn't listen. You weren't ready." At that point, I was done. I just wanted to get out of there. Caleb, though, was determined to get through to him, so I backed off and let him try. The next thing I knew, Avery started screaming, this ear-piercing, guttural scream that I swear will haunt me forever. He was shouting, "Get out! Get out! Get out!" over and over, at the top of his lungs. Caleb was trying to hold him down, trying to calm him, but Avery fought like someone twice his size, thrashing and knocking over everything in his way. I knew we couldn't handle this ourselves anymore, so I called emergency services. I told them everything, that he was acting out, that we were worried he was a danger to himself, maybe even to us. The paramedics and police arrived within minutes, though it felt like hours. They managed to calm Avery down enough to get him to the hospital, and they put him on a psych hold for observation. The whole house was wrecked, like a tornado had ripped through it. Caleb was a mess. He collapsed on the couch, head in his hands, just whispering, "I failed him." I tried to comfort him, but honestly, I was still shaking myself. The relief of having Avery out of the house, even temporarily, was overwhelming. The next day, we met with a social worker who told us Avery would need extensive psychological evaluation and therapy. She also said that, based on everything Avery had been through, he might be better off in a residential facility where he could get 24/7 care. Caleb looked shattered at that suggestion, but I felt like, finally, someone was acknowledging that we couldn't keep doing this on our own. When Caleb and I got back from the hospital, the house felt different, quiet, but peaceful, like the weight of all the tension and fear had been lifted. We cleaned up Avery's protection circle, and as we put away the knives and scattered objects, Caleb looked at me and said, "I think it's time we step back from this." In that moment, I knew we were both on the same page. He told me he didn't blame me for wanting to leave, that he'd been clinging on to me, hoping I could be his rock, but that it wasn't fair to expect me to shoulder all this with him. He was going to get Avery the help he needed, no matter how hard it was to let go. We hugged for what felt like hours, both of us finally admitting the truth. We couldn't keep holding ourselves together through this nightmare. So, that's it. Avery's officially in treatment now, and I moved out yesterday. Caleb and I are taking a break to focus on ourselves and heal. I still love him, but after everything we've been through, we both need to rediscover who we are without the constant fear and chaos.